Hi, I'm Terry Brock with terrybrock.com. You know, communication is so important, and one of the major parts of communication is not necessarily what you're saying, but what others perceive about what you're saying and how you come across. And to address a very important issue that's in our world today, I brought in a communication expert, Diane DiResta, who joins us from her offices in New York. Diane, thanks for being with us today.
Hi, Terry. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. By the way, on our first Google Plus Hangout, I think for you, welcome aboard. What do you think of Google Plus Hangout, by the way?
I love it. I'm so excited. This is such a great tool.
It's got some real possibilities, and I really appreciate you joining us because you were talking about something that I saw, and I just thought, this is brilliant, a thing called Uptalk. And Uptalk I've heard of, and I thought, what is this? And you described it so well in your article that you put together. Tell us a little bit, kind of briefly, what is Uptalk and what's it all about?
Very simply, Uptalk is a rising inflection. It sounds like you're asking a question. You're really making a statement. Now think about if you're speaking like that in a sales call, at work, on a job interview. What is the image and impression you're giving? So Uptalk is a speaking pattern, and it's an intonation pattern that creates a very tentative quality.
Yeah, it's tentative, and then I think the real issue is not so much what people are saying, but it's how they're being perceived. And
Absolutely.
It seems like it's happening at a subconscious level, that the person who's hearing you with that uptalk, they think something is wrong, or like that. Talk to us a little bit about the perception that others have about it.
The perception is that you lack confidence and conviction because at least in U.S. culture, I'm not going to talk about any other language, but in U.S. English and in our culture, the voice of authority goes downward. So when I speak with authority, I say, today is Friday. But if I say today is Friday, it sounds as if I'm not sure. So when you're presenting an idea and you say, this is a good idea, and what I'd like to talk about, I'm thinking, you're not really sure it's a good idea. So even if I'm not thinking it consciously, if you use Uptalk enough, subliminally your audience checks out and they say, this is not someone who has conviction. This is not a leader. This is not someone I'm going to be influenced by. So it has a tremendous impact, even though it sounds like it's such a little thing. It's really not.
Yeah, it's a big issue because it's the way that people are perceiving you. And this is not related to education. Someone could have a PhD, be a competent expert in a particular field, but if they use that Uptalk, it's degrading how they're communicating. Would that be correct?
Yes, it is. It automatically detracts from what you just said. Now, I will say this. It has become generational. It is very common in teens and 20-somethings. And when you look at the origins, it was very popular around the 80s. It was called Valley Girl talk. So people thought it came from California. It's actually in other areas as well. But now it's reaching epidemic proportions. So I've been interviewed by the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, and they're finding that this is spreading. Now you find it in men as well, not older men, but younger. So the millennials, this becomes a generational pattern, and it does not serve them in the workplace.
Very important. And again, it's because of the perception that others have. Doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. In a way, could it be similar to dress? People say, well, I'm just going to dress the way I want. But in a business setting, the way you dress communicates. And how you come across really is important. Now, if you're in Silicon Valley, you're a coder, you're setting down your coding, one type of dress would be okay. If you're in Wall Street or you're making a formal presentation to a group, a different kind of dress is appropriate. Would that be a good metaphor?
Yes, it would. And unfortunately, in certain cultures, in startups especially, because some of the people are younger, you're starting to hear this pattern more and more. But for the most part, it doesn't serve you, and I will not hear it at the executive level. And the reason I don't hear it there, or you don't hear it, is because you don't get to that level. It is not the voice of leadership. So the meta message is in the tone, not in the words, which you so well know.
Exactly. That's where it is. Okay, so now the real important thing, someone's watching this and they go, okay, Diane, I think I might be talking like that from time to time. What would you recommend to that person who's watching this? Just look right there in the webcam and say, okay, here's what I recommend. What would that be, Diane?
First of all, it's awareness. You have to understand that you're using it. So record yourself or ask people that you trust. to give you that feedback. So once you are aware that you are using that pattern, the second thing is to hear yourself when you're doing it. So one of the things you can do with a buddy coach is have them echo it back in private. So if you said, "Are you going to the party?" I'd say, "Party?" And so people would start to hear themselves. They don't hear themselves. You can also record. Take your smartphone, and when you're on a phone call, record your voice, because you're not consciously aware of yourself at that moment, and then play it back. So the first level, of course, is awareness.
Yes, being aware of that, and I like the idea of recording. I think that's been a powerful tool for analyzing, because you hear things when you're watching your recording that you don't hear when you're saying it yourself, just looking into a mirror.
Absolutely, and that's why a friend or a buddy coach can be really helpful in this regard. And I've coached people in the workplace, and even people at a junior leadership level. They'll say they lack executive presence, and I start to listen to what they do, and they're using a lot of Uptalk, and then part of that syndrome is non-words. So like, it's kind of like, and you've lost total credibility. Now here's the interesting thing. It's easy to turn this around. If you simply bring your intonation down at the end of a sentence, that little bit explodes your sense of authority. And when I was a faculty member at NYU, we had some 20-something young women, and they all talk like this, and then suddenly they bring it down. And it was amazing what it did to their authority and credibility. So if you're not getting your ideas accepted, if you feel like you're not being heard or you're not being listened to, start to tune into the way that you are saying things. How are you making requests? How are you making statements? If you're out talking, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think what you just said is really important, because it's perception. The executive awareness and how they're coming across really is important. And I know you have written about this extensively. You've done a lot. You've got a lot of materials. You help people directly. I know many clients are thankful to you because you have been able to help them in specific private ways, coaching with them. And matter of fact, you're now offering this available over services like Skype or Google Plus Hangouts, available so that wherever they are, it's not like, okay, you're in New York and they're somewhere else, people can get in touch with you. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you, Diane?
Through my website, DiResta.com. There's a contact page there. Send me an email, and I'd be happy to follow up with you.
Okay, and please spell DiResta for those that might be listening to the audio-only version of this.
D as in David, I-R-E, S as in Sam, T as in Thomas, A.com, DiResta.com.
Excellent. Very important subject, very important because it can affect how people perceive us and our credibility and influence in the world. Very important. Diane DiResta, thanks for joining us. I'm Terry Brock. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.